Losing a set in Memphis. They are not walking in Memphis. They are walking out with a loss in Memphis. The Nuggets dropped 2 to the Grizzlies. P.S. Jokic was hacked. This is Locked On Nuggets. Welcome to Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast, part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and we're available on all platforms. Glad to have you with us, even after a loss. Do want to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. A big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there. I'm loving it. Adam Mares, the Nuggets are not loving their experience in Memphis as they drop both sets of the duplex, a rare occurrence since most of the time teams get one of the two. Too big of a hole in the beginning. Bench was too bad. Like, to me, this feels pretty standard, right? Like, the bench was too bad. They dug too big of a hole. They weren't able to get the stops that they needed. They got one outlier shooting performance from Jaren Jackson Jr., who was phenomenal tonight. They did a lot of things well, but not enough, and they walk out with a loss.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call it standard. You know, Denver did in both games. They did just enough wrong to lose. And, you know, if you take just one little thing away, you probably can sneak out. I mean, Memphis wasn't perfect in either game either. But Denver, yeah, I mean, you don't go back down by 18 points, or you don't shoot 30% from three, or you don't allow 50% from three on the other side. Like, any of those things can happen, but you know, tough break. I do think though, from the last time you and I podcasted together, there have been some interesting developments, even though they've come in a couple losses. So I'm excited to kind of get to them.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I don't know. It felt like there was like it felt like people were worked up about this one for whatever reason. Like, people were
online.
Yeah, like they were like, oh no, like there was a sky is falling, and I'm just like, guys, you had a 2-game set on the road versus Memphis, who at this point in the season is playing awesome. Like, they are playing really phenomenal basketball. They can't defend at all. Like, that's really I think the concern is tonight. The Nuggets defense kind of slipped up. Right? Like, I think they still probably walk out with a win if they can, because they didn't have too many turnovers, right? And the offense wasn't inefficient, even if it wasn't like otherworldly, but I thought the defense kind of slipped, even if Aaron Gordon did a good job on Ja in the second one. But overall, like, to me, this is like, I would not describe this as a bad loss. I think maybe the first one was a pretty rough one. This one, losing by 1 on the Jokic non-call, this one doesn't feel like a bad loss to me. Am I wrong there?
I don't know if I would think either one of them was bad. I thought on Monday night's game, Denver didn't have the energy required, and that's a bummer. It happens. Something usually happens on the road. So I guess that one would probably be a little bit worse to me, just because you feel like the reason they lost was they just didn't have the requisite urgency and energy. This one got off to such a horrendous start that it kind of echoed the first game for about 8 minutes, 9-10 minutes or so. You kind of thought, wow, I thought they were going to come out storming, and they came out on their heels again. But after that, I thought the team regained their balance, and there was a lot of good things that happened. They just couldn't dig out of. I mean, ultimately, I guess you could say that hole they dug was a little bit too big. Either that, or you could say that once they got up 10 points with 30 seconds to go in the third quarter, they had about a 1 minute stretch there where they gave up their entire 10-point lead and actually went behind by a point, all in about 60 seconds or so. So you could point to those two things, but bad loss, good loss, moral victory. I don't know. I mean, Denver has some issues. They have some really great things going for them right now, but they also have some issues that are just becoming recurring things. And I think they're trying to figure out, slowly piecing out how to solve those problems.
I think where to start.
Do you want to start with bad or good? Because I think there was some extreme good stuff in this game.
I'm always want to talk about the bad. Let's do the good first. What was good? Okay. Like, I'm gonna partake in the idea of, like, of like, you lost the game, but we're going to take the positives away. Let's partake tonight. I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah,
So
I mean, look, you got to take both. And I think when you lose, especially a 50-50 game like this one, there's more bad than good. But there are some good things in here. Number one, Aaron Gordon's defense on Ja Morant was incredible. I thought absolutely incredible. I mean, we haven't really seen him guard elite guards for this prolonged period of time. And he was incredibly effective. I thought part of why Denver got back into this game, or a large part of it, was Memphis was searching for what you do when Ja Morant gets canceled out. He's like Jokic to them. He is the engine. And when you take him out, they hit some big shots, but they clearly didn't have the flow that they wanted. And I just can't say enough good things about the job Aaron Gordon did defensively against him.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a credit to Memphis, and it is also, to me, it's a credit to Memphis in terms of they have more than one guy that can create, right? Like Desmond Bane did some creation, Jaren Jackson did his thing, Tyus Jones hit some stuff. Like they have a lot of creators on that team who are NBA size, and so like they're actually able to I think they're a very well built team. I don't say that's just somebody that likes them a lot. I just think that they're very well built, especially offensively. I think defensively they've been a mess, but they can clean it up. I thought the work that Gordon did on Ja was great. I think it took a little while. It's notable to me that Malone goes into these games kind of with the idea of like, we'll use Aaron if we have to, and like every single game it feels like, okay, I guess we have to, and because I thought Ja was really put Monte. I thought Monte was rough tonight, especially on defense. I thought that this was Monte has some nights where he's surprisingly pretty decent. I thought tonight was pretty rough for him.
It's unfortunate too, because I said this last time we were together, that every game he got better, and he started out slow, and even in the preseason he's just gotten better and better. And this was the first kind of major step back for him in terms of having a bad game. So, I mean, this is you mentioned that they have a lot of creators. They do. They have a lot of smart players. I mean, Desmond Bane, Kyle Anderson, these are smart guys that know what they're doing. But I actually don't think they have an engine. They have Ja Morant is their engine, the same way Nikola Jokic is their engine. But the creation they got from Desmond Bane and Jaren Jackson, what they got was great shot making. But I think it was one of those things where, like, if you're Denver and you say, hey, these are the shots you're going to get, you'd be like, okay, we're going to live. As long as Jaren Jackson doesn't make 5 threes, we're good. And tonight he made 5 threes. So,
yeah, I mean, Jackson was definitely like the swing vote tonight. I would just say that like Bane created some stuff off the dribble. And, like, he didn't have like a super efficient night, like 6 of 14.
Yeah, but he's like Will Barton.
Yeah.
They're equals, or maybe Barton, I think probably a little bit better even, but Bane's really, really good. And he really made some shots tonight.
Speaking of, man, so Will has that terrible game on Monday, and everyone goes like, there was well, maybe he got hurt and he hasn't been the same, right, and what a letdown. And like, again, I here's the thing: don't expect Will Barton to have like 5 straight awesome games. Like, remove that expectation from Barton as a player at this point in his career. I don't think that that's like
this point of his career, I honestly believe this is the apex. So I think you can drop at this point of his career. I think it's just more of what kind of player is he? And yeah, he's not a Jokic that's going to have 30 straight good games. He's more of he's good most of the time.
Yeah. So like, what I don't mean to say this, like he can get better. I'm actually saying like the opposite. I'm saying like, look, the upside is not there to where like maybe he could reach a point. It's this is who he is. Like, Will's
by the way, Jamal Murray's that way too, right? I mean, it's rare that we would see like more than 5 good games from Jamal in a row.
Yeah. Despite what people seem to think around Denver sometimes, like Jamal hasn't made an all-star team, and there's a reason for it, right? Like
inconsistency,
the inconsistency. But Will bounces back tonight, huge. I thought he was, especially, I'll say, he was so terrible in that first quarter that I was like, well, okay, I guess Will has just been like hanging out with like folks that he knows in town, and like
again, always connecting the dots. Why? If he was bad, it must have been because of Halloween, or maybe because of friends, or whatever.
It could just be the NBA player had a bad game.
Yeah, it couldn't have been. It couldn't be that he just had an off night. What I loved after the game, him talking about how he went to Malone and was like, I was terrible. Like, I like when guys don't have an excuse ready or don't have this or that. He's just like, I don't know, I was bad. Because we do this, right? We do split. We try to like dissect everything and say, what was it? And could it have been this? And I just like, hey man, I was bad. I'm not going to let it happen 2 times in a row though. I'm going to go back there and be really good this game. And he did.
Yeah. I like the owning up to it too, where I think players get defensive because of the environment that surrounds them, which they're under constant criticism, and they have like, social media, and they can always check and see what people are saying, etc. I like the guy that some guys are willing to be like, no, like I just didn't play well, and I actually like want to normalize that. There's a player on the Nuggets that has been absolutely terrible, and it does not mean that he's a bad player. It does not mean that he is never going to be good again. It means he's playing bad right now. We'll do that when we come back on Locked On Nuggets. But first, I do want to tell you that today's show is brought to you by rockauto.com. Rockauto.com is the place to go for your auto parts for your car or truck, whatever it is that you're looking for, brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, new carpet, whatever you need, you're going to get it at Rock Auto, and you're going to get it for cheaper than at the big block chain stores. You will get that up to 30%, 50%, maybe even 100% less at rockauto.com than from a chain store or from the car dealership. They're a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. Their prices are reliably low for every customer. Go explore their easy-to-use website today to find the solution for your auto parts needs. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so that they know we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. We're also brought to you today by BetOnline. Adam, I have like this little model I'm tinkering with that's based off of transition and half court data, and it's been performing extremely well. And on Wednesday night, I had plays on all the games based off of various levels of how much you should bet. And it went 6-5, a little bit down from how it's been doing, but still pretty decent. Guess which 5 games I bet? Not the 6.
The 5?
The 5. Rough night for your boy, but I'm back at it tomorrow, and you can bet it's going to be at BetOnline, where you can get the best props, the best lines, the best sides, everything that you're looking for with their new web interface ready for basketball season. They are your number one spot for basketball and football action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile device to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use promo code LOCKEDON to receive your bonus, and you can bet the Von Miller getting a quality win with the with the Los Angeles Rams. From basketball, football, baseball postseason, NHL, boxing, and UFC, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets, thanks for making this your first listen each and every day. We're free, and we're available on all platforms. All right. Back here with Adam Mares. Adam?
There's a couple more positives before we get to the big negatives.
Okay. What are the positives you want to touch on?
Do you really not know? I mean, is there not a positive?
The obvious one. Sorry. If we're doing all the positives, we got to talk about Bones.
That's the positive. I mean, look, one of the storylines, if you were to whittle this season down to like, well, if you could tell people one thing, you'd probably be like, Denver has a bench problem. And Michael Malone knows it. And we are now 8 games into it, and we already have what appears to be the framework for what this team is going to be going forward. And it's Bones Hyland's playing 20 minutes. He played 21 minutes tonight. I kind of feel like 15 plus minutes is just in the cards for him going forward, and not because, for the right reason, that Denver needs him. That he brings something to the table that bench unit just doesn't have. And also that he just seems to be ready for it. He's going to make rookie mistakes. He's going to be scouted. All this stuff he's going to have some ups and downs, but he just has talent. And he was a bright spot tonight.
A team, well, not team high. JaMychal and 822 had a better one, surprisingly. But outside of JaMychal, Bones had a 125 offensive rating in this game. The reason that's notable, that's a team stat, not an individual. The reason it's notable is that bench unit is only going to survive if they get buckets. I don't think they're going to be able to get stops. They're undersized. They're not terribly athletic. They don't have premier guys. Like, this is not a great bench. They don't have like really solid NBA veterans. They're going to need guys that can make plays and do stuff. And Bones Hyland does stuff. And like, it's just evident. He just does stuff. The energy, it's weird. Everyone kind of like speaks to the energy, and it is palpable. I'm not denying that it is, but there are I will say this too. There are guys that I think in the league, like, they bring a different energy, but it doesn't translate into any sort of production. With Bones,
Facu brings a different energy.
And so like there's actual like production with Bones that I think really matters in terms of like bringing a different energy, but also like 4 of 8 from the field, hit a 3-pointer, 9 points, 3 assists, like only 1 turnover. There's just like a lot of good there. Like there's just a lot of good. To me, it's like plus minus is a flawed stat. I've never claimed it's not. I do think it is an essential stat because to me, it tells you, are you winning or are you losing?
Yeah, I hate when people talk about this flawed stat. It's flawed stat to make sweeping statements because sometimes you have a guy that played well that was on a negative or this or that. Right. But it's not a flawed stat in that it's literally the point of the game.
Thank you. That's all I'm saying.
You should be.
The point of the game is to outscore the opponent. You're supposed to have more points at the end than the opponent.
And the Nuggets were a -2 tonight.
Yep.
And that's not a flawed stat. It's actually the only stat that matters.
Yep. So Bones being a +1 to me is very, very, very notable. Like I want to ask you this question. He played 20-43 tonight. What is a minute load where you would start to get nervous about him playing that much, given that he's a rookie and like fatigue can be a factor for guys that haven't played this much?
I almost don't know if you can worry about that at the moment.
That's fine.
Because like doesn't exist at this moment.
Yeah. Because my thing is, I would like to take 35. Like I think 35 minutes a night is okay for him.
See, that's too many. He would break down at that many. But he would never play that many minutes. 35. That's Jokic's not playing that many minutes.
Yeah. I'm just saying because like if we take the 14-26 that Facu's playing and we give him to Bones, then he's at 35 minutes, and like that's like an actual that.
I mean, I've been saying this a while now. I think Facu is a bit of a scapegoat here. I mean, he's not good. He has not been good for this team, and it's on a roster that doesn't work. But I think what we have found, what we have discovered over these last games, as Michael Malone has completely changed the way he's running this rotation, is that the problems with that bench unit go much deeper, and they include Jeff and JaMychal Green. And yes, JaMychal Green in his 8 minutes had that plus because he was on there for a very hot stretch. But those guys also don't make, I think, as a front court, have some real problems. Jeff Green now, this is several games in a row where he has looked pretty just disinterested, not a lot of sense of urgency. And we're talking about a second unit that needs all the urgency it can muster, and he just doesn't have it. So anyway, Bones has been great. And you mentioned earlier that he just does stuff. I think there's 2 things in particular he does. The 3-pointer, obviously, like he's just a guy that can shoot threes, and that's huge. But more important than anything is he can get into the paint on pick and rolls.
Yeah.
He has more options than anybody else in that second unit about, once I turn the corner, what do I do? And he's actually a really good pick and roll player. So I think there's no question that he's in line. Like I would not be surprised. 15+ minutes. I kind of earmark it because I can't imagine the Nuggets putting together a successful rotation that doesn't include him playing 15 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, and really, I think I understand. I've understood more than most, like why. And you've been understanding too of like giving the guys a chance, et cetera, et cetera.
Totally.
But like, to me, honestly, I think Malone's been too slow. Like it's one thing if it's like, well, okay, the bench hasn't been great, but we got to give him a chance. It hasn't been that. It's been literally the only reason you're losing games is because of your bench. Like
I think, but Denver's 4-4, and to be honest with you, I predicted they would be 4-4 at this point. I thought they would lose to Phoenix. I thought they would beat Cleveland. So like they haven't all come where I thought they would. Right. But I thought they would be. But I think 4-4 is about where they're supposed to be. So I don't. Look, I actually don't. I think Malone is sort of right on time with how he's done everything. Like I do think it's important to kind of give guys opportunity, this or that. But now the problems with this team are so glaring that I think that it's just so clear that they need what Bones is providing. And by the way, Malone knows it. I mean, he didn't play him 21 minutes tonight as a knee-jerk reaction. This was hey, here's where we're going. And by the way, he came in that stretch 4 minutes into the game when Malone benched all the starters besides Jokic. He went with Bones in that moment. Yeah. So that just shows you the confidence level he sort of has in him right now.
I want to be consistent. Right. And like you mentioned, like I have very clear intentions of who I think is to blame. And I don't like, we can disagree, and that's okay about what the biggest problem is in the bench unit. I will just say this, like PJ Dozier's got to be better. Like he's just got to be better. And I believe part of it is that here's the key. I don't think Facu has played badly for his standard. Yeah. I think PJ Dozier has played badly for what his standard can be.
What about JaMychal Green?
Yeah. So we can talk about this.
And what about Jeff Green?
Yeah, we can talk about this. So J-Mike is playing very badly. what I try and remember with guys like JaMychal Green that have been in the league for many years is a lot of times guys will have bad months. And we've talked about this on the show before. Like, I'm a believer in this. Like, Will's had bad months. Will probably have another bad month, right? Like, veteran players that aren't stars will have bad months. Jokic doesn't have bad months anymore because he's one of the best players in basketball. But like most role players, they have bad months. JaMychal was really good last year overall for the Nuggets. He's been really bad this year. They need an alternative. Like, this is part of my issue, and it's been my issue since preseason. Like, he's struggling like JaMychal's struggling with what he does well right now. On top of it, he's being asked to do something that I do not think is shown to be something he's capable of night in and night out. I think there are stretches and moments and times.
What is he being asked to do right now?
Play 5.
Oh,
like that's it to me. I honestly think if you have a standard NBA center and JaMychal is playing stretch 4, he's going to not have had a good season. It would not be the absolute dumpster fire it has been.
What about Jeff Green?
This is Jeff. Like, I don't know. Like, Jeff's gonna have nights where he's like, who's really good, and he's gonna have stretches where it was like he was really good in that game. This has been Jeff his whole career. This has been Jeff his entire career, and he's part of this also is I would say like he's a veteran that like will just get through some of these games. Like, he is. If you're looking for like the guy that's gonna come off and bring energy and be like the bulldog that like sparks stuff, that's not Jeff Green. Like, he's just like standard capable.
Here's my point. Facu has been bad. Austin Rivers has been bad. PJ Dozier has been bad. JaMychal Green has been bad. Jeff Green has been bad. That's all 5 guys. Yeah. And then Will Barton, 2 games when he's playing the stagger alongside the bench, was bad in Memphis and then in this. So I just look at this and I think all of these guys have been bad. I don't think you can say it's one guy. Now, Facu does have the ball in his hands, and it isn't the point guard is important and this or that. But to me, it's these ingredients don't mix. And this is the challenge that they have. And I think that there is a bit of a fall guy because he's an easy fall guy. He's short. He can't shoot. He can't finish at the rim. Like, he has fatal flaws.
If you replace Facu Campazzo with Ish Smith, the bench is still bad. Like, I'm with you.
I think if you replace him with Will Barton, as we've kind of seen already, it's still bad. Will Barton's good.
Yeah. I'll agree with that, but the only counter I kind of got there is like a lot of times Will's playing next to Facu. So it's like, I genuinely need to see what the unit looks like if Facu Campazzo is not in it in order to evaluate it. That's me personally. Like, you're not wrong that they've been bad, and you're not wrong that it's not his fault that JaMychal Green can't hold on to the ball down low. It's not Facu Campazzo's fault that JaMychal Green can't finish a lob because he's an undersized small ball 5. It's not his fault that PJ Dozier looks completely timid and like he's really worried about screwing up offensively all the time. Like, these problems are not on Facu Campazzo. However, I do think that there are players that can provide things that will make everything easier for the other guys who all bring other things to it. Here's a very honest thing. I do not know with the current roster who can play better to make things easier on Campazzo. Other than JaMychal Green hitting pick and pop 3s. Like, that's the only thing I can really point to and go, if JaMychal's shooting better, they can just run pick and pop basically into the ground, and it'll get you through enough possessions to get you to when the starters come back in. But like, that doesn't solve the defensive problems. And part of it is they're still going to have defensive problems. If you take out Facu Campazzo and you throw in Ish Smith, do I think the defense is better for the second unit? No, they're undersized. Like,
I don't think there is a solution, sadly, with this one. I think the solution, obviously, Bones has to ramp up his minutes a lot. That's why I say 15 plus every single night. And maybe turns into 20 plus here really quickly. But I don't know that there is a change that you can make to the front court. And I'm not sure there's a change you can make that brings both Facu out of the rotation. Just because when you start adding it up, you got to play 9 guys. And I think that you kind of have Bones, Dozier, Green and Green. Even the Green and Green combo there, I'm looking at it and I'm going, man, if they're playing 20 plus a night, that's tough. Like, I don't care who you throw out with them. That's also tough. So I think Michael Malone's in a bind. They need to get Michael Porter going. It would be nice that in theory, Michael Porter is a player that can elevate a bad bench lineup, because it's like, hey, you guys just got to play defense. We got a guy that's going to score. And sadly, right now, they don't have that.
Yeah. Like, honestly, I think part of this is like I say this, the Nuggets kind of need the G League season to start. I'm
Why is
not
that?
kidding. It starts on November 11th as the Gold's first game. They have pulled guys out of there and like found guys. Like they found Torrey. I honestly, like, I'm dead
But
serious.
they don't have a roster spot. I mean, and honestly, I don't know that this is the year for it. I just because the G League, I don't think it's like a typical G League year. They're kind of running back the roster that they had last year, which wasn't their roster. I agree with you. I agree with you.
I'm just telling you, like, if it means losing Austin, which I don't think I would not want them to do personally, but if it meant losing Austin, like I will just say that I think it is imperative that they get an actual 5. They need a 5. Like,
I agree too.
I legit, because here's a lot of it. We're not even talking about making the bench unit a plus. We're not even talking about making the bench unit like a neutral. We're just talking about making the bench unit not a -15.
Right.
You know, like, add some rim protection, and that shaves off 5 points.
But I just want to say, I 100% agree with this, but this is the point I'm making. I think Denver's backcourt doesn't make second unit backcourt doesn't make sense, but I think their front court doesn't make sense either. And that's why I'm trying to pump the brakes on the idea that there's this one quick fix that's going to do any, because I don't think there's one quick. I think it's a multi-tiered problem that requires a multi-tiered solution.
I don't think that if you excise Facu Campazzo from the lineup, that the bench is a positive, or that the bench is not facing huge trouble. They're still a minus, and it's still frustrating, and it's still dragging down starters that have to play with them. It's badly constructed. The idea, I think, was sound in preseason. Like, the Nuggets are very good at roster building, and they had a construct, which was, okay, we're going to have like a lot of playmakers and switchable small ball guys that can shoot. It's just not working. Like, it's not working for a number of reasons. I do think that they got to change the dynamics of it. And to me, that's not this is my thing, is there's a lot of blame on Malone for this. And I don't know that there's a way for the coaches to fix it other than what they've done, which is like, we're going to try and anchor the starters as much as we can.
Right.
You know, like, I do try and remember, like, look, when is their biggest trouble period? And to me, from what I've seen, it's the start of the second and fourth quarters. Yeah. It's that stretch where Jokic is off the floor, and it's usually a heavy bench lineup, and they're just trying to get from the 2 minute from the quarter mark to when Jokic comes in between 8 and 6.
Yeah.
You know who would usually fill that gap?
Jamal Murray. Yeah.
So, like, that's part of it.
In a tight spot with that. Yeah. I mean, Denver really is just in between. They got to find the solution here. I'll tell you what I think the solution is they need Michael Porter. I mean, just this version of Michael Porter is so bizarre 8 games into the season. And look, it's a prolonged slump at this point, but what they need is a guy that can help bail you out, as Will Barton did tonight. This is why Will Barton was great, but part of me worries that there was a little bit of a Band-Aid over a larger issue, because he hit some really tough shots and made some great plays that were like, had he not done that amazing thing, they would have been an even worse hole than they were in. So, but they need Michael Porter, I think, is talented. And I think I would have said, I know he's talented maybe 8 games ago. I think he's talented enough to be a guy that goes out there and carries those units, because he gets 6 points this stint, 8 points that stint with him. But right now, it just, the team doesn't seem to have confidence in him, and he doesn't seem to be able to deliver that.
Yeah, I'll say this, the bench doesn't have an identity either.
Yeah.
Like, on top of everything else, and like, this is a minor thing, but I think it would help. Like, some benches are rough and tumble, right? Their whole thing is like, we're gonna dog you, and some benches are like, we're gonna get buckets. Like, it's a bunch of hoopers.
Yeah.
And the Nuggets bench is just like incomplete fill-ins.
Yeah, they clearly don't trust their own process with that second unit. I mean, they don't have a thing that they're like, here's how we beat you. They're searching.
I mean, this is what's weird is, like, I mean, I will say it's encouraging. I want to give Michael Porter one shout out here. Like, 11 boards, that's what you want to see. Like,
the way I put it today over at DNVR was, I think he's actually been really impressive at all the other stuff, like 6 out of the 8 games.
Yeah.
The problem is he's been pretty much a 0 on the stuff that's like the foundational stuff. Hey, he's a scorer. And so it's just been so bad.
I'll say the last couple of games, he did it early in the season, but in the last couple of games, he hasn't mucked up the offense at all. He hasn't caused
At all. No.
like he's been where he's supposed to be defensively. Like I asked Malone about how good he's been because I think he's been just solid, and that's all he's got to be. He's rebounding. Yeah. That's great. It's just like, and I hate that we're in a position with this because I want to, it's like, look, he struggles with all these things and he's better at all these things he struggled at, but it's also like, yeah, but you can't sacrifice. You can't be a role player. That's right. You didn't get paid $200 million to be a role player.
Yeah, he's struggling right now. I mean, I'll tell you, Saturday is a great opportunity for him to get back in and talk about another bad defensive lineup, and just a game at home. Denver should be able to win. Like this should be a get right game, and hopefully we've been waiting for a get right game for him, and he has an opportunity here. But Denver's 4-4. It's where I thought they would be. I think there's a lot of encouraging things. Jokic has been fantastic. Barton has been fantastic. Aaron Gordon has been fantastic. Aaron Gordon's chemistry with Jokic continues to improve. He only shot 5 times today, which you talk about fitting into a system. Aaron Gordon knew what his job was tonight. It was to shut Ja Morant down, and he did it. So there are some real positives. It's just that the negatives are so glaringly fatal right now that that it's kind of drowning it out. But I remain somewhat encouraged. I would say mostly encouraged with what the Nuggets have done through 8 games.
Let's take a break. We'll come back and we'll wrap up with some final thoughts after the Nuggets drop 2 in Memphis and go to 4-4. But first, do want to tell you, this episode of Locked On Nuggets is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. They've always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group, knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, the home team, or the away team can come to recharge. It's a place you always look forward to stopping to on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. One of my favorite McDonald's related memories, my kid doesn't eat anything. He just doesn't, my son doesn't eat anything. He does eat McDonald's and he loves it. When he was 5, I picked him up early from school to take him to go see Avengers Endgame. He was huge into Avengers at that point. And it was like, he was looking for that movie for a year. It was the biggest thing in his life. I picked him up and I had a bag of McDonald's ready for him, and he has never forgotten it to this day. He still talks about that awesome day where I picked him up and had McDonald's and we went to see Endgame. Head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect. I'm loving it. We'll be right back on Locked On Nuggets. Back here on Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for making this part of your day. Appreciate you guys being with us, making us your first listen each and every day. Now make your second listen, Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Josh Lloyd hosts the #1 daily fantasy basketball show on the planet. It's free and it's available on all platforms. Wrapping up with Adam, world's finest post-game after the Nuggets drop another one. So I do want to mention this to you. So I like that you're in a pretty positive spot. Like you seem like you're like, it's fine. They're 4-4. They've had a pretty tough schedule. They got some wins we didn't think they'd get. They've had some losses we didn't think they'd get. And that's really how it feels, right? We didn't expect them to get the Suns win. They got the Suns win. We didn't expect them to lose to the Cavs. They lost to the Cavs. I expect them to get 1 of 2 out of the Grizzlies, and they didn't. So like to me, it's like, okay, like this kind of evens out in the end. I think it's okay, right? Especially
they've got 5 home games coming up, though. This is a big 5-game homestand. Like this is where you would hope they would start to get settled a little.
Would you say? I guess here's the thing. This is like the essential question, right? Because we get tied into where the team is at right now. Everyone's always reacting to like, where's the team? Did they lose? All right, something's got to change. And it's like, did they win? How far could this team go? Like you and I've done this long enough. Let's look at the long term. Based off of the first 8 games, do they have enough to survive until Jamal gets back?
I think so, in part because I think that they've figured out their rotation more or less. I mean, Bones is in. They're staggering more. Like these are things that 4 games ago they were not doing either of those 2 things. So I think they're trending in the right direction. And here's my thought: can Michael Porter be worse?
Yes.
I don't know that he can. He I don't know that he can be worse than this in terms of like the impact that he has. Like, yes, he's rebounded. You're right. He could completely check out. I don't expect that. But I think he will be better. Monte Morris, I think, will be better. Like he has been getting better throughout the season, minus today. So I think that I think that Denver is in a process right now that I feel optimistic they're going to come out of the other side a little bit better.
We're back to the bench thing here, but I do want to ask you this. How much better of a player, this is going somewhere, so I'm not just digging here. How much better of a player, and I'm asking you in very vague terms, is Monte Morris than Campazzo in your mind? Like, what is there, like a tier, 2 tiers, 2 levels? I'm trying to get a sense of that.
I think Monte Morris is really good.
Okay. So the reason I ask is I return to the idea of would putting Monte with that second unit do anything to solve some of these problems? If it's Bones and Monte, even with this trash can of a front court that they got going on right now?
I mean, I think you lose a lot from putting Facu in that first group. I mean, Jokic does kind of raise all lineups, so you know, you would survive it a little bit better. But I mean, Denver has been dominant for more or less when Jokic is on the court, and I would worry that you would take a little bit of that away. I don't think that's the solution.
So you'd rather have, like, get the most out of Jokic as many minutes as you can.
I think I think you're getting on the right track here, because I do think that Monte and Barton together with the second unit probably helps a lot. I just think it's more of an earlier stagger. To me, I've said this a couple times, I think now, but Bones to me would be the first guy to sub in for Monte. He wouldn't start, but he would be the first guy to sub in, and he'd probably come in 5 minutes into the game as opposed to 7, 8 when Denver typically makes their first rotation. I would bring, because Bones is I think is better than Facu, at least at what Denver needs him to do. And so you don't lose that much from swapping Monte with Bones.
I'm trying to get data, and I don't have anything because it's too early in the season. I don't have enough minutes.
Yeah, and the numbers on these things are, I mean, it was even funny.
Yeah.
You mentioned Bones had a 126 offensive rating. I'm sitting here thinking he probably had about 40 in 20 minutes. It's about 40 possessions, 45 possessions. And Jokic hit a 3 from the logo while he was on there. So if he misses that, that's worth about 6 points.
Right.
So that goes from 126 to 120.
Yeah.
You know, you could kind of play that game.
I mean, look, this is like a good example of how, like, how amazing Jokic is, but this also kind of leads to your point. It's only 32 minutes. Dozier, Campazzo, and Jokic, 3-man group, is a plus 12.6. Like, that's 2 players that have played as badly as anybody to start this season, and it just doesn't matter if you play them with Nikola Jokic. So, like, the real answer here is they just got to clone Nikola. Like,
Jokic is so good, Matt, and I'm telling you, it's been such a slow process of him, like, going from really good to, like, just dominant every second he's on the court, that I feel like sometimes I'm taking crazy pills with, like, tonight. I was kind of like, you know, he was pretty good tonight, 34, 11, and 5 on 11. Like, it's just, now, what is the standard for me being impressed with Jokic? 50 points, 20 rebounds. Like, but it's not even just that. I go back, obviously, and watch every game. I break down film over for the list on DNVR. Like, I do all this stuff. When I break down the film, almost every possession I see something Jokic did when I rewind it that I'm like, oh, that was smart. Oh, that was smart. I'm just every possession. I'm like, oh, I see what he sees.
I feel like we're doing a disservice if we don't talk about the non-call. Do you have a reaction other than, like, do you have a reaction to the non-call?
Well, I had a reaction. I didn't actually see it. When he shot the ball, as soon as it left his hands, I was like, oh my God, it's an air ball. And it was just like, it was such a stunner. I was so certain he was going to tie the game on. Like, I just was convinced. And then when he shot it and almost airballed it, I was like, wow, I did not expect that. Did not see a foul. And so I was doing the post-game show with DNVR when somebody brought that to my attention. And then I was like, of course. Like, it was almost like I was in disbelief, you know, like I'd been lied to or something. And then when you find out, oh, no, you weren't lied to, there just was this crazy missed call. But it happens. Like, that's just sadly, it's just one of those things where it's like Denver's not the only one to have lost a game on a missed call like that. It sucks that it happened.
Yeah, like, that's the thing, is like, you're going to have these. This is going to happen. It sucks, but a lot of it for me, I think, is also just I have an awareness of this. To me, was also proof of how good Memphis is right now. I don't know if Memphis is going to be this good throughout the entire season, but Memphis has been really impressive to me early in the season. They've had some duds. They've gotten, like, Miami beat the snot out of them because Miami is the best team in the league right now. Yeah. They've been caught by a handful of teams, but, like, overall, I've been super impressed with Memphis. Like, they've been one of the most impressive teams to me this season, and that's despite me knowing that they are, like, 30th in adjusted defensive rating. So, like,
they have smart players, man. I just love smart player. Kyle Anderson is a smart player. I mean, one of the smartest in the NBA. Desmond
Also,
Bane is a great player, super smart
Ja,
player.
Ja had a bad night because of Aaron Gordon's defense, and yet like Ja had like 5 like absolutely just brain breaking plays. Like he just
Yeah, I
does.
mean, he's amazing. Yeah,
Like
he's
he
an
just
amazing
does so many
player.
insane stuff. Like I actually love the idea. I mean, why wouldn't I of Memphis versus Denver for MVP? But I love the idea of Ja Morant and Nikola. Like I didn't want to go too far, but to me, I was like, look, I think this is 2 of the 4 best players in the league so far. Like the 4 best players this season have been Steph Curry, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Nikola Jokic.
Didn't know Jimmy Butler?
No, the Heat are dominant because of their entire thing. Like Adebayo is great, and Kyle Lowry is great, and Duncan Robinson.
They have a lot of good players.
Tyler Hero's been awesome. Like Jimmy's Jimmy, but like he's. I mean, look, I would love it. I bet him at like 20 or no 45 to 1 to win MVP because I was just like somebody in the East is going to get in this conversation. But no, I think the 4 best players have been Ja, Nikola, Giannis, and Steph.
This is going to sound silly, but because they just beat Denver 2 times in a row, I wouldn't mind Memphis. I think Denver can handle Memphis in a playoff series. Like I still like that.
They're not ready for that. They're not.
I mean, Jokic was also in both of these games as good as he was. A little past, just not quite full playoff Jokic aggressive.
Oh yeah, no, these were not playoff performances at all. No. And in the playoffs, presumably you don't have to play the bench. So that's another addition. God, the bench is such a freaking problem.
It should be noted as Michael Porter, as much as he is not scoring and stuff right now and is slumping and this or that, Michael Malone played him, I think, 36 minutes tonight. Like, that's a vote of confidence, even though that he's not playing well, that it's still like, hey, you're still out there. I've been
talking about this. I really think that he hit a point with him last week where he was like, shit, I went too far.
Well, I wonder, Jokic too, because Jokic had a quote, I don't know if it was today or the last game after the game, where he was very, very, very complimentary of Michael Porter and soft and like, hey, so we're all behind him. And I was kind of like, oh, usually Jokic's like, yeah, he passed to me. He had 2 players. Like he's just very like insulting almost and everything. And even Jokic had softened it. And I thought, but it almost worried me. Malone and Jokic are going on MPJ. Like, oh no, he must be really broken.
He's really broken. Yeah, I mean, look, I will say this, like the Nuggets started off 2-0 and they looked like so impressive, especially in the Suns game, that you could have these expectations of them being like at the top. Like, look, the Nuggets are going to be scrapping and clawing for a while. They don't typically hit their stride, and they especially don't, like we saw this last year. They started off rough. They got better. But even like, I'll say this, like we were still kind of like shocked from like the Celtics game all the way into like late March when they started to get it together, right? Like, or at least into like early March. They started to really turn it around late February, early March. But like, we were still like All-Star. We were still like, boy, I don't know. Like this still feels real touch and go with Denver. And they settled in, and they will kind of settle in. And then you'll just look up in the standings. You're like, oh, they're 8 games over 500. Oh, they're 10 games over 500. Like you'll just kind of wake up and be like, oh, they've just kind of gotten the edges here. But they're going to scrap and claw, I think, for a while because they're missing again. I've always put these things in terms of money because not that the players are just assets and whatever, but because it does kind of understand the Nuggets have committed $35 million of their $108 million in salary towards one player, and that player is not available to play. Yeah. And you're going to have to find answers until you get out of that. The bench unit probably looks better if Jamal Murray is able to both stagger it and you can play Monte off the bench. You're not like, oh, we got to play Monte with the starters because we got to make sure we get the best Jokic minutes. Right. You're just like, oh, we can play Monte with the bench because we have Jamal.
I remain hopeful about this team with Jamal Murray and Bones Hyland fully integrated into it. So many of the problems we talk about, you're like, oh, so if we add Bones with a full year under his belt and we add the second best player on the roster, like, okay, this team is actually really awesome. But you got to get there, and it's going to be a slog to get there.
And one more thing before we go, just real quickly. Under the category of it can always be worse, the Dallas Mavericks are 5-3 and their fans are miserable. That team is a miserable watch. Like watching that team is torture. Yeah. They are so like, it's bad.
I don't know how they're 5-3. It really blows my mind.
They played the Kings and they beat the Spurs by.
So a lot of this is the other thing about early season. It's so funny when you look at the stats and you look at this and you're like, oh yeah. By the way, who made this Lakers schedule? I'm telling you, this league is rigged. The Lakers have some new pieces they work in. Why don't we give them the Rockets twice? Why don't we give them the easiest teams you could possibly manage?
I wrote this in their season win total. Like a big reason why I was on the over was look at the schedule. My theory is that it's actually not about like trying to be nice to them as they integrate. It's just entirely based off of LeBron's comments about last year. Because I will say this, they had a nightmarish start to the season. Like, it was really weird that they gave the Lakers, who had the least rest of anybody outside of Miami, they gave them like one of the hardest schedules over the first 30 games of the season last year of anybody. Like I was genuinely like,
because you had opening night, you had Christmas, you had Martin Luther King, you had all the television games. That's when the season started. And of course they're always going to be there. This year, those games don't happen for 2 months. So their tough schedule didn't come until 2 months from now. So
but it was also like the rest situation. Like they had the Lakers in bad rest situations, like the first 2 months of the season. I was like, what are you doing? Yeah. And so LeBron's complaints definitely were heard by the league office. Utah, I called it. I said, look, Utah's going to smash early because they've got an absolute cupcake. But if you're wondering, Denver's back half of their schedule is absolute cake. It is it is shortcake. So you got
to take advantage of this homestand and get their rhythm going. Michael Porter's got to snap out of it. 5-game homestand, 5 games of being in your own bed in your own home. It's like a week and a half that they'll be in Denver. It's a chance for them to stabilize, and they need to. If they're not stabilized by the end of this 5-game homestand, I would be a little concerned.
Give me Michael Porter Jr.'s highest scoring performance over the 5-game homestand.
It probably comes on Saturday against this terrible Rockets team. Man, it's so funny how modest I'm feeling right now about him. I'm going to say 28.
That's high. I think that's high.
It's a lot of points.
I think that for a team with like Will's got a high usage, you got Nikola.
Look, man. I mean, it's so crazy with Michael Porter. I would have said like 40 if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, but I'm down to 28. I think there's a nice little comfortable breakout game.
I'll go 19. I'm still skeptical. So.
Man. That's scary. That's frightening.
Gonna have to show me. That'll wrap it up for Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us. Great episode today, as always. I love the fact that you and I come in. We had no show prep for this. We just like came in fresh. And like, you and I can just we're jazz musicians, baby. We just jam off each other for a solid 45. That's Adam Mares. You can find him, director of content at thednvr.com. You can find my work at the Action Network. If you have betting tips, please send them my way because I am in hell. You can follow me on Twitter at HP Basketball. Thanks for joining us. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's been great. We've seen lots of growth on it, lots of new subscribers. Check out our YouTube channel.
Throw us some comments on there on YouTube.
Yeah, throw some comments. We love seeing those for a live edition of this show and my nifty Colorado hat, which I love very much. I wear every day. All right, we'll see you guys again tomorrow for another edition of Locked On Nuggets. Thanks for joining us.